In the freezing winter of 2008, an executive at Apple realized that a massive, last-minute design flaw meant millions of newly minted iPhones needed their glass screens completely replaced right before the global launch. Instead of facing a devastating delay that would cost billions, a single phone call to a sleeping factory complex in Shenzhen woke up over 8,000 workers who were instantly handed a biscuit and a cup of tea. Within less than 30 minutes, these workers were fully stationed at their assembly lines, and they began a relentless 12-hour shift that successfully produced over 10,000 polished glass screens every. This legendary corporate miracle exposes a profound secret about the global economy that almost no textbook ever explains to you clearly, because the truth behind it is far more unsettling than you have ever been told. You have likely spent your entire life believing that China became the world's absolute manufacturing superpower simply by exploiting a nearly endless ocean of incredibly cheap, desperate, and low-wage factory workers. But if low wages were the only secret weapon required to build an industrial empire, then countries with far lower average wages would be dominating the global manufacturing market right now, instead of remaining largely left behind. There is a hidden architectural masterstroke at play here, and once you finally see how this massive machinery operates behind closed doors, you will realize that your entire understanding of modern wealth has been an illusion. I break down one deep psychological and economic system per video in plain English. So if you want to truly understand the hidden forces that shape your money and your world, subscribe and turn. To truly understand how this trap was set, we have to look directly at what economists officially call agglomeration economies, which is a powerful phenomenon that completely transcends the basic concept of cheap domestic labor. What most people never realize is that when a company decides to build a complex electronic product, the actual cost of human hands assembling the pieces is only a microscopic fraction of the total production budget. The real silent killer of profitability is logistics, which includes the massive delays, the complex shipping fees, and the agonizing coordination errors that occur when your components are scattered across entirely different continents. While Western nations were busy shifting their economic focus toward digital services and financial speculation, Chinese central planners spent 3 decades building hyper-specialized industrial ecosystems where every single supplier lives on the exact same street. If you want to manufacture a smartphone in a city like Shenzhen, you do not need to ship the camera from one country, the screws from another, and the circuit boards from across a distant ocean. You can literally walk out of your front door and find the battery manufacturer 2 blocks away, the microchip tester across the courtyard, and the packaging facility directly adjacent to your main loading dock. Think about the absolute last time you ordered a cheap plastic item online and wondered how it could possibly be shipped across the entire planet for just a couple of dollars without making the company go completely bankrupt. Here is the research actually found when independent global trade analysts looked into the structural mechanics of Chinese industrial policy over the past few decades. Data confirmed by the Center for Strategic and International Studies reveals that China spent an astonishing 1.7% of its total gross domestic product purely on direct industrial subsidies to build this infrastructure. That specific level of financial backing is more than 4 times the amount spent by Western nations, and it created an embedded network effect that makes it practically impossible for any foreign competitor to replicate. Before I get to the most counterintuitive part of this global economic chess match, and trust me, this next revelation is going to surprise you, let us look at how this network creates absolute leverage. When you look at a modern factory in the West, you see a business trying to maximize its own private profit. But when you look at the Chinese manufacturing ecosystem, you are looking at a unified biological organism. If an automotive brand like Mercedes needs an extra batch of customized door handles at 2 o'clock in the morning, a Chinese factory can absorb that request instantly because their machinery never actually stops. They will simply utilize the excess capacity of an existing production run to deliver thousands of identical parts at an extreme discount that no independent Western machine shop could ever hope to match without losing money. This brings us straight to the ultimate psychological trap that Western corporations completely failed to see when they originally outsourced their physical production lines in search of short-term quarterly profits. Western executives fell victim to a massive systemic blind spot by believing they could carefully retain all the high-value intellectual design work while permanently giving away the dirty, low-margin physical labor. But your brain did not evolve to anticipate how engineering knowledge actually develops over time, because design and manufacturing are not two separate islands that can exist independently of one another. When you give away the physical production of a product, you are inadvertently giving away the exact birthplace of future innovation, because the people who build the item are the ones who figure out how to improve it. Over a 20-year period, Chinese engineers transformed themselves from simple, low-wage assemblers into absolute masters of industrial automation, precision manufacturing, and advanced material science. According to a landmark report by the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, China now controls nearly 1/4 of the entire global output across the world's most advanced, high-value technology industry. They are no longer just producing cheap plastic toys or basic textiles, because they have successfully climbed up the global value chain to dominate semiconductors, advanced electric vehicles, and renewable energy infrastructure. Stay with me for just a few moments longer, because what I am about to show you in the next 2 minutes exposes the dark pattern that keeps the entire global consumer landscape completely dependent on this loop. There is an official international agreement through the Universal Postal Union that historically classified China as a developing nation, which allows their factories to mail small packages across the globe for a literal fraction of domestic shipping costs. This means a factory located deep inside the industrial heartland of Guangzhou can ship a package directly to a consumer in Chicago for significantly less money than it costs a local business to ship that exact same package across town. This brings us to the dark reveal of our modern consumer psychology, because the entire system is deliberately engineered to exploit our collective addiction to instant gratification and incredibly low. Every single time you open a popular e-commerce application and purchase a remarkably cheap gadget without thinking twice, you are actively validating a massive industrial machine that has systematically dismantled Western manufacturing capability. The absolute truth is that the West did not just lose its factories because of cheaper labor, but rather because it completely lost the collective knowledge, the physical infrastructure, and the speed required to build things. This systemic collapse of domestic skill sets means that even if a Western nation decides to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in government grants to bring factory jobs back home, they face a massive wall. They quickly discover that they no longer possess the specialized toolmakers, the industrial engineers, or the highly disciplined technical workforce required to operate these advanced manufacturing facilities at a globally competitive scale. While a factory worker in the West might expect highly structured 8-hour shifts with rigid operational boundaries, industrial manufacturing cities in Asia operate on a completely fluid 24-hour cycle of continuous optimization. This incredible operational velocity is further amplified by a brilliant economic concept known as customization at scale, where massive factories can alter their multi-million-dollar assembly setups almost instantly to satisfy changing market demands. If a viral trend on social media suddenly creates a massive worldwide demand for a highly specific type of kitchen gadget, Chinese factories can sketch, prototype, mold, and mass-produce that item within a mere 48 hours. Meanwhile, a traditional Western corporation attempting the exact same pivot would likely spend 3 entire months stuck in corporate meetings, legal reviews, component sourcing delays, and international shipping negotiations. This fundamental speed differential means that the global marketplace is no longer just a competition over who can produce an item for the lowest cost, but rather who can adapt to human desires the fastest. This dynamic creates an absolute monopoly on fast-moving consumer goods, because the traditional retail models of the past simply cannot survive when competing against a direct-from-factory pipeline that eliminates all middlemen. Western retailers are forced to purchase massive inventories months in advance, take on immense financial risk, pay for expensive warehouse storage, and hope that consumer trends do not completely shift before the cargo ships arrive. Chinese digital platforms have completely flipped this equation on its head by utilizing live consumer data to manufacture only a few hundred units of an item at a time before committing to a massive production run. If the initial data shows that a product is converting well among active online shoppers, the automated supply chain instantly scales production up into the hundreds of thousands of units overnight without a single human intervention. If the product fails to capture attention, The factory instantly halts production with virtually zero wasted capital, allowing them to constantly test thousands of wild variations while Western companies remain completely paralyzed by inventory risk. This brings us to the most profound psychological insight of the entire industrial ecosystem, which is that human behavior is always profoundly shaped by the physical friction present within our immediate environment. By completely removing the friction of distance, time, and capital risk, this hyper-integrated industrial engine has fundamentally rewritten the rules of global commerce in a way that regular consumers are totally blind to. You might believe you are exercising complete free will when you choose to browse these hyper-optimized shopping applications during your lunch break or right before you go to sleep at night. But the reality is that your dopamine system is being precisely harvested by a supply chain that knows exactly what you want to buy before a factory has even finished printing the shipping label. This brings us directly to the core geopolitical dilemma of our modern era. Because the nations that control the physical means of production ultimately dictate the technological standards of the future world. When a country loses its capacity to manufacture basic components like semiconductor packaging, electric batteries, and advanced telecommunication hardware, it completely surrenders its long-term strategic sovereignty to foreign powers. No amount of digital software innovation, Wall Street financial engineering, or creative marketing genius can save an economy when the physical infrastructure required to sustain life is controlled by an economic rival. This realization is causing a massive tectonic shift in global politics, as Western governments frantically attempt to construct domestic supply chains through massive protectionist tariffs and heavy industrial. But these emergency political measures are ultimately failing to move the needle because they are attempting to solve a deeply complex architectural problem with simple, short-term financial band-aids. You cannot simply build a solitary factory building in the middle of a Western suburb and expect it to compete with a city where 50,000 deeply interconnected component suppliers live within a 15-minute drive. Until Western societies are willing to completely rebuild their educational systems, reinvest in physical trade skills, and tolerate long-term industrial planning, the global balance of economic power will remain firmly locked in place. The true story of how China became the world's factory is not a simple narrative of cheap, outsourced sweatshop labor, but rather a masterclass in industrial psychology, geometric integration, and absolute operational. It is an enduring testament to what can happen when a nation aligns its entire political, financial, and social architecture toward the singular, unrelenting goal of dominating the physical world. As you look around your room right now and spot the endless array of products stamped with that familiar manufacturing label, I want you to remember the massive, invisible machine pulsing behind them. You are not just looking at a collection of cheap, convenient consumer goods, because you are looking at the tangible remnants of a silent industrial war that the West lost decades ago without ever firing a single shot. So let us pull this entire picture together to understand exactly what this means for your financial future and the global landscape over the next decade. First, China did not win the industrial race simply by being cheap, but by leveraging agglomeration economies to create a hyper-efficient network where every single supplier lives right next door to the assembly. Second, by surrendering the physical manufacturing process, Western nations inadvertently gave away their innovative edge, allowing Eastern engineers to completely dominate the production of the world's most advanced high-tech goods.